Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Fatima Rafiki, and today we are gonna present our talks to all of you, where we talk about inclusive design. What is the difference between inclusive design and accessibility, and why it is crucial towards making a more inclusive society. But before that, let me start by a round of introduction. I am a second year graduate student pursuing a master's degree in human computer interaction and design. Previously, I interned at Juniper Networks, and I will be joining there during the fall of 2021. And I am the web design intern at CWIT. Over to you, Paramita.
Hi everyone, my name is Parumita. I'm also the web design lead for the Center of Excellence for Women and Technology. I'm a graduate student in the Human Computer Interaction and Design program. I just want to thank you all for coming today on a Saturday afternoon, and we're really excited about this session, specifically because we will be talking about how we can make our web experiences more inclusive and accessible. So I hope you all are able to learn something new today. And yeah, with that, I'll pass over to eBay.
Hi everyone, my name is Ibe and I'm studying here in undergraduate as a sophomore, majoring in comprehensive design and interactive multimedia. And I'm an aspiring UX designer in the future. I'm also working here as a web design intern as well. So welcome to our session. And without further ado, let's get started.
Okay, so let's do a quick question first. You can answer in chat as yes or no. How many of you need captions of a video if it's in your native language? We need your responses to move further. Okay, I see a lot of no's. Uh, okay, sometimes. Okay, okay. Now answer this. How many of you have struggled to watch a video in a noisy place and switched off on captions? Okay, almost all of you respond as yes. So I guess I can clearly see that since you all of you respond yes, you see how things change based on the situation. We'll talk more about it in detail, but let's talk about what accessibility is first. So accessibility is basically a quality that makes experiences open to all. What I mean by open to all is not only including somebody who has disability. It's like the situation we just talked before. If you're in a noisy situation, if you have some sort of hearing temporary disability, or if you have some sort of in a situation where your mic where your speaker does not work, and how do you access a video? So a quality of that experience where you can still access it and understand what the content is about is all what accessibility talks about. But why accessibility? So you may be easily saying that most of the people that we design our product for are normal, but there's no such thing as normal. So there's no guarantee to life. You can either of us can any day lose vision, hearing capabilities, or have a physical impairment. It can be temporary, it can be permanent, anything of that sort. And you can be in a situation where you rely on one sense organ more than the other one, like we just saw in a noisy atmosphere. And of course, you're gonna grow old, so you cannot stop that. So accessibility means opening that experience to everybody. Inclusive design is a design that opens up experiences to people with a wider range of abilities. So I am not relying on one organ particularly for one sense of organ particularly for experiencing something. It's a combination of different things so that it opens up windows for everybody to access it. Now, what is the difference between accessibility and inclusive design? So accessibility is a method, is an attribute, and inclusivity or inclusive design is a method to practice accessibility. But it can be overwhelming to design for everybody, right? You cannot design for every single person for every single trait, and you'll be like, what? I cannot open this experience for everyone out there. But I'd say designing inclusively does not mean that you are making it for everybody. You're designing a different variety of ways of experiencing for people to participate with sense of belongingness. It's like opening windows or opening different ports of receptiveness for the same product. Now, accessibility is an important factor for everybody, but specifically for women. Women with disabilities face significantly more difficulties in both public and private spheres. We all know how much difficult it is for them to even get adequate housing, health, education, vocational training, and employment, and are more likely to be institutionalized. In such a situation, it becomes important for us to take the responsibility of making resources available to them. So, suppose there's a woman who is going to go on a pregnancy break or maternity leave, or suppose there's somebody who's growing old. So, they are subject to more prejudice in the society, and it becomes our responsibility to make the design more inclusive, not only for everybody, but specifically for women, to empower them so that it doesn't become a roadblock in their way ahead. Without these resources, we wouldn't have had such Wonder Woman in our society. Carrie Burnell is Carrie Burnell, Tammy Duckworth, Claudia Gordon. If you don't know them, I would highly encourage read their story. Sorry. Carrie Burnell is one of the U.S. Senate U.S. Senate executive in the government here. Claudia Gordon is Obama's personal advisor, legal advisor. So they would not have been able to achieve what they have achieved up until this point without the support and right resources. And accessibility is an important step there. Without the important resources, without making them accessible to them so that they can grasp and they can achieve whatever they want to through these resources, they would not have been able to make so much progress. So it becomes more and more important for us. And eventually, I would say accessibility is not just for women, it's for every single person, it's for everyone.
And like Fatima said, accessibility is really for everyone and not just those with disabilities. Designing for accessibility means that you're providing a much more convenient experience for everyone who also have temporary or situational exclusions. These examples can include short-term injuries, using your phone in a bright light, being in a noisy place, or simply not being able to use both hands. And these things can happen to anyone. So the concept behind accessibility design is solve for one, extend to many. Because designing for someone who has permanent disabilities often result in a design that benefits everyone. For example, as you can see in the figure, if you have a design that works for someone who only has one arm, it would also provide a convenient way for someone who also has an injured arm or a new mother who has to hold their baby in one arm.
So now that we know how important accessibility is and how everybody can benefit from it, we need to know how can we create accessible designs. So now we will be talking more about actionable things that you can do to have a more accessible website. So let's start with the standards. WCAG stands for Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. It is a standard, a set of guidelines that is used globally and internationally to make web experiences more accessible to everybody. So these guidelines are organized from a set of four main principles. The first one is perceivable. So this means that the user should be able to consume the content in various different ways. So as Fatima asked the question before, being able to have closed captions for a video for any situational or permanent disability. The second one is operable. So can the site function without confusion or without the use of complex interactions, maybe using mouse and keyboard together or a very complex way. The third one is understandable. So can the user understand how the user interface functions? So this would primarily be the navigation. Is it fixed across all the different pages, or is it more confusing? And finally, the fourth one is robust. So this means that is your website supporting assistive devices like screen readers and other devices that can be used to understand the website. So to make it more simplified, these are the four main components that you can divide the guidelines into. The first one is vision. So this is for people who might have a blindness or even low vision, and also color blindness. The second one is hearing. So some people might not be able to listen to the videos. So for that, we need closed captioning. So people with hard hearing or deafness. And then there are motor skills. So some people might have limited motor control, or they might have small response time. So how do we create more accessible designs for them? And finally, the fourth one is cognitive. So oftentimes people might not be able to focus properly, or they might be more distracted. So keeping those things in account while creating our web experiences also becomes very important. So now let's start with the things that you can do. Before that, so the WCAG has three levels that this set as standard, which is the A, double A, and triple A. So as long as you are doing double A or triple A, you are good to go. So for color contrast, you should have a minimum ratio of 4.5 to 1 between the foreground and the background color. So this should be more easy to understand from the example over here. So the example at the top has a very legible text um, in white, and the background is dark green. Compared to that, the one at the bottom is not very legible and has a contrast ratio of 1.4. So I will stop there, pause a little bit if anybody has any questions until now or anything they want to say.
I use an online contrast tool. Basically, it's on colors.co. That's pretty useful. So I just put that in chat if anyone else wants to use it.
For sure, yeah, that is very helpful. Okay, so moving on, the next one is using a combination of colors and icons. So people who might be colorblind, they won't be able to distinguish between important information just through colors. So it is important that we give visual cues not just through different colors, but also different patterns. So over here, you can see that the graph not only has different colors of bars, but there are also different patterns that depict the difference between each of them. So let's keep it more engaging, and we are going to ask you all a quiz. The first thing that we want to know is, which one do you think is accessible design, A or B? And DJ, I think you can see the poll. Yeah, so we've launched a poll, and just respond which one do you think is more accessible and why. Maybe put it in the chat. You're seeing 100% on B. That's good. Anybody can say why. You all can come off mute as well. Maybe I'm not able to see the chat very well. Okay, I think Sakar mentioned something in the chat. Yes. Yes. We can stop the poll now, and you all are absolutely right. The B option is accessible because of a better contrast ratio and the icon. So it has a combination of visual cues to help understand. So Moving on, the next guideline is usable focus states. So what is usable focus states? So whenever you are using an application or a website, whenever you click on a specific icon, you might usually see it highlighted in some way. For example, over here, the upload icon is highlighted with a gray color. So it is important to show these focus states because some people might be using screen readers. So for people who are using keyboards or might be power users who are navigating through the keyboard, it is important to see which specific feature or icon is highlighted. The next one is labels and form fields. So oftentimes whenever you are filling out a form, the input fields, as you can see, has a light gray text within the box that says what that field needs to be filled in with. The problem with that is that this text will disappear once you start typing. And the second problem with that is because it is light gray, some people with color blindness might not be able to, or low vision, might not be able to see the text because of low contrast ratio. So over here, it is important that we add labels at the top. So you're seeing in this example, each input field has a label on the top or at the right to show that what this input field is for very clearly. So now again, another quiz. Tell us which is more accessible, A or B, and why? This should be pretty simple, I guess. Okay, let me check the chat. Yes. Can anyone tell me why?
Providing captions is one way.
Yes. Yes, everyone is right again. Okay, no, this slide is wrong. It is this one. One second. It's very difficult to navigate everything. Yeah, so this one is right. You all are absolutely right. And let's move on. I'll pass it over to Fatima to continue with these guidelines.
Uh, yes, thank you so much for conducting two nice quizzes, Paramita. Uh, so alt text is another way of improving the accessibility of your web page. Now, what is alt text? So suppose I'm having low vision or I cannot see the screen, and if there's an image that comes across the web page, I cannot see anything related to that. So how do I perceive the content on the web? For that, it's very important to add alt tags on your to your images. So people with low vision often make use of screen readers to hear the web. That is where these alt tags come into picture. There are two ways to that you can present alternative tags. One is you add the alt attribute in while you are developing the whole content for your web page through HTML, and the other one, and a more important and a relevant one would be that you add context or surroundings to the image itself, so that it's explanatory what the if there is an image, it's explanatory of what the uh, text above or below it is, and it should relate to that, so that there's a continuity and flow in the web content. It's very important that when you add an alt text to an image, there is some context to it. If you, for example, the picture here on the left, if I just say a picture of a student, it would give very little information to the person who is hearing out the web content through. So it would be making it not making it clear of what the content is talking about, while a more elaborative content, uh, uh, while a more elaborative text support for all text would be a postgraduate engineering student working in new microscope lab would give exactly what the image is talking about. So if you go to the previous slide, can you go to the previous slide? So here, the alt tag does not say Colorado. It says Colorado mountains sunset scene. So it gives you the whole context of what the image is. So that when I'm hearing it, I'm not confused, okay, what the image is talking about, or if there is an image or not, why is the audio reader not telling me anything? So that makes it more accessible, and always remember that context is everything here. The second one is markup. So headings mark where content starts. So you always have a visual hierarchy when your content is there on the web page. So for example, the first heading, then the second heading, and then the third heading. But how about people who cannot see your web page? So these markup tags or HTML tags H1, H2, H3 are not just for visual purpose. They are for much more. For example, screen readers, people who use screen readers tend to, these screen readers help them understand what the hierarchy of the whole content, how the content is structured. So this way, people with low vision can get an overview of the page by just reading each heading in a hierarchical flow. Next. So for example, there's a document title, and then there's some important heading, and then there's some lesser important heading. I'll just give you an example. If it's a page about, say, dogs, so what to feed your dog, that is the whole title of the blog. And then there's a lesser important heading, do or do not. And then there's a one last important head, the least important heading, you may also try this. So when I am hearing through an audio reader, I want to know what exactly is the hierarchy. I also want to know where exactly, what is more important and what the whole page covers. So these audio readers can help distinguish based on the tags of what exactly is most important, then what is less important, and what is the least important one.
Thank you, Fatima. So, okay, ensuring your website allows keyboard control is extremely critical because people with motor disabilities, with vision issues, people who don't have precise muscle control, or even just power users are very dependent on a keyboard to access content on a website. So in this case, it's really important that you're organizing your content into categories that make sense. For example, you can see on the figure in the right that certain things are categorized under web themes and templates, while certain things are categorized under video. And this can ensure that people with a screen reader can easily find their content quick and conveniently. And a good practice to ensure that your website works is to test your site using only a keyboard. So contextual text support is extremely crucial for people who have vision issues or hearing issues. This is important because, as you can see in the figure, when something is underlined click here multiple times in a passage, it might be confusing for those trying to access it, and they might not be able to find what they are looking for. So a good way to change it is, instead of just naming it click here, you can explain what it is in a clear and precise way. For example, click here for resource link, and that will make it much more convenient for people to access it. And next is captions and transcripts. So WCAG guidelines requires that all websites have closed captions and transcripts for all pre-recorded audio and video content. And you can see on Zoom that there is a caption option, and you can turn it on and it will give you live captions. And this is extremely important for those who might have hearing issues, as that might be the only way that they can access certain content. And this is also very convenient for those who might be in a noisy place and can't hear very well, and they can just simply read the content and still be able to enjoy the experience. And lastly, volume and frequency. This is pretty self-explanatory, simply providing content that has a clear and loud enough volume for everyone to access, and especially for people with conductive hearing loss, who may hear sounds as faint or muffled. This is extremely important. And for those who do have this problem, they might also have difficulty with low frequencies. So you need to take that into consideration as well when it comes to creating your own content. And this goes very well with captions. So with both implemented in your website, you can ensure a wider range of access. And now it's time for our last quiz question. Which one is most accessible? You can vote in the poll.
This one is a tricky one. You'll have to carefully observe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are many differences between A and B, but what makes which one better? Okay, I'll give you like 20 more seconds.
Let us know why in the chat as well.
Okay, I'll be ending the poll now. Okay, so 5 people chose B and 1 person chose A. So if you chose B, you're correct. And anyone know why that is? Okay.
I think we have an answer in the chat.
Yeah. So B has more information. That is correct. Who is talking? So the most important thing here is that B specifies who the speaker is for each like conversation, I guess. So this clearly tells whoever's using the screen reader who is speaking, and that makes it so much easier for them to understand and follow along.
Okay, so we're almost at the end of the guidelines. We have 2 more left. So this one is about UI elements and navigation. So one of the things that accessibility and the guidelines state is that the design should be predictable. So for example, if you can see on the right, this image is from Apple's website, and you will always find this top bar at the website, no matter what page you are in, especially this top bar that says Mac, iPad, iPhone, etc. So this makes sure that your design is predictable, and the order of these elements will always be the same as well. So there will be no confusion when you're going from page to page, and you will be able to understand how to navigate and where you can go next. The next one is interaction and animation. So to prevent any triggers, I've added a cute GIF here. But what I mean by interaction and animation guidelines is that whenever you are adding any animations, make sure that they do not flash more than 3 times in a second. This is really important because if the animations flash 3 or more times, it is possible that you can trigger a seizure for someone. So really, really important thing to keep in mind, the last and the most important one. So beyond all these guidelines and actionable things that we shared, if you want to have another extra step, I would say you can get an accessibility audit. So there are a lot of services available which can offer you an accessibility guidelines. They can go over your website and create an accessibility report that specifically pinpoints what are the things that you can change or do better to make your website more accessible. The next one is appointing an auditor. So many companies have accessibility teams and specific people assigned who audit the digital experiences that the firm or the organization is creating. And if you do not have anyone in your team, it is always a possibility to hire an external auditor. And finally, making accessibility part of your design research. So it is very important, even before you have started designing, that you bring in people from all different situations and abilities to the research process, so that we are creating designs from for them and with them. Finally, tying it back, empowering women and empowering everyone, it's very, very important, since women often go through a lot of social, cultural, and economic disadvantages, making it more difficult for them. It is very difficult for them to take part in like more things. So inclusive design and accessible design is just one way of us as designers and developers to make their lives a little bit more easier, and offering them resources every step of the way. So, as always, just remember that if we are solving for one, we are solving for many, and accessibility is not just for one person, it is for everybody. And a recap, things to remember: always getting to know your audience. So, know who might be using your product and including them in your design process. And with that, following up, inclusive design has to be done from ground up. It is not something that you look at it later. It is something that you start from the beginning, and it is involved in the process from the ground up. And yes, accessibility is for everyone. And I hope this session was helpful. We are opening the stage now for Q&A. So please feel free to come off mute, put your questions in the chat, however you feel more comfortable. Any comments are also welcome. If you have anything additional to add, if you missed anything, if you particularly liked something, please feel free to share.
We have a question in the chat. So, are platforms like Wix and Webflow considered about accessibility design?
Um, So I have not used Wix before, but I use Webflow. And one thing that I really like that they recently launched, it's in still beta, but whenever I am creating or adding a color on my website, it will show me what is the contrast ratio of that color. So that is really helpful for me to pinpoint exactly, okay, this is the color ratio. And if it is low, I can improve it and change the contrast right away from Webflow. Another thing that they do is they show on the top what are a few issues, and it particularly says, okay, you have like 5 issues on your web page, and then they show, okay, these are the images that you need to add alt text to, and this is how you can create more accessible website. So I think that is a really cool thing that Webflow recently started doing, and yeah, I really like that.
I think I would
Um,
like to add one more thing here. You cannot rely completely on a tool to help you guide all the accessibility parameters and how, like, make it accessibility completely inclusive for everybody. You have to take some responsibilities at your hand. That is where the guidelines play into role. So if it's telling you the contrast ratio good, but you have to ensure that you have an alt text to the website will also tell you, Wix will also tell you, or Webflow will also tell you, okay, missing an alt text. But to add a contextual alt text is your responsibility. If you just write picture one, picture two, picture three, it won't make it accessible. So taking an extra step is also something that you can try doing.
Yeah, thank you for the comprehensive answer. So next question, Cheryl asked, is there a certification to become an accessibility auditor? Personally, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure if Paramita or Fatima knows.
I am not sure about this either. So there are many courses that are available online where you can learn how to accessibility guidelines, but I am not sure if there's a particular certification. There should be ideally, but you can definitely search around on the web. If we find something, we'll definitely be posting it.
And looks like oh, there's another question. So if we need to get some accessibility user interviews in a particular field, is there a community where one can reach out to get info on this?
Bhanu, can you explain a little bit what you mean by accessibility user interviews?
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to build something accessible in terms of disabled and or the blind. So, but the problem is trying to reach out to this pool of people is kind of difficult during COVID. I mean, how because conducting user interviews in this domain is kind of difficult in terms of blind or seniors. So, how does one go about getting in touch with these people or conducting interviews?
Um, there,
Yeah, take it. Go ahead, Fatima.
There are multiple ways where you can try doing this. One is actually visiting. If you are in Bloomington, you can go actually visit the disability center. But I think you'll have to take all the permissions and you'll have to go through the IRBA guidelines there. So you'll have to, because you're actually going to interview a sensitive audience. Um, so you will need permissions so that you don't trigger any sort of, you know, mm, any sort of negative or something that might have a negative impact on them. So you will have to go through a proper procedure. For I think recruitment is always a challenge. I am working with teenagers and recruiting them has been a challenge for me. You can try different platforms like sub communities in Reddit, where people actually, Reddit is a community where there are a lot of people who are physically challenged, and um, they use Reddit is very friendly with audio readers, so you can try using that. Apart from that, I think reaching out to your own circle, and if you want to simplify the process of getting permissions, you should reach out to people in your own circle.
Mhm.
If there are any other resources, you can feel free to add, Paramita. You're on mute.
I think you covered a lot of it well. I would say that there are a lot of communities, even on LinkedIn, on Facebook, about accessible design. And it is possible that if you reach out to the community, they would often help you out for even recruitment or any other help that you might need.
Yeah, so basically, there's no fixed answer to this. Recruitment is challenging. You have to reach out to as many people as you can.
Are there any other questions or, okay. So thank you guys so much for coming to our sessions today. And please remember to give us feedback using the link sent in the chat or simply scanning our QR code. And that'll be very helpful for us.
Yes, I think feedback is something that really helps us build upon our presentations, and it lets us know what you all want to see and learn. So it would be really helpful if you all can fill out the feedback form.
Also, there's a really nice prize you get if you're picked in a drawing.
Yep, bonus.